Well, it's a wonderful introduction to our presentation of the 14th commission in the Apollo Chamber Players 20 by 2020 commissioning project. That was Vanessa Vo performing on the Dan Bao, the monochord, the single-stringed Vietnamese zither. And in just a moment, we'll be talking to Vanessa, and I'm sure she'll be happy to play for us a little bit more. To begin with, though, I'm joined by the Apollo Chamber Players musicians and Matt Dietrich. How did Apollo come to be performing with a Dan Bao?
Well, up to this point in this project, we had been a little bit West-centric. We had explored Japanese folk music and Indian classical music, but we wanted to kind of make an excursion again to the East. And I should also say that this commission came about because of the generosity of one of our board members. His name is John Jones, and his wife Lisa. And I think we actually had a board meeting at one point, and he kind of off the cuff said, you know, if you guys explore the music of Vietnam, I might be interested in supporting it. As we talked about these commissions and how we fund them is a very integral part of the discussion too. So in this case, John and Lisa Jones just loved Vietnam, and we wanted to make this happen for them. So we did a little bit of investigating. I met with Stephanie Todd Wong, who's one of the program directors at Asia Society Texas, about the idea of doing a co-presentation of this particular concert. She had such spectacular things to say about Vanessa and her work with Ken Burns, the documentarian, and Kronos Quartet. And she introduced us via email, I think soon after that. And Vanessa was just very gracious in her planning with us and just her general collaborative spirit. And we knew it would be a great match. So she's one of the co-composers of the composition, and the other composer is named Nhat Tan. He was recommended to us by one of our other commission project composers named Alexander Dubois. So from that point on, the gears were turning, and the collaboration ensued from there.
Well, Vanessa, before we actually talk about the piece of music, May, why don't we talk a little bit about your instruments? Because for most Western audiences, these instruments are perhaps not very well known. Can you talk a little bit about the two that you have there, the two zithers, and how they are used in Vietnamese music? And feel free to play away.
Yes. So this is my Vietnamese Dan Bao, and you all already heard a little bit about it. It only has one string, but the string is even so small that you cannot even see it. But I do have a string here, and the Dan Bao was invented in the 9th century by the beggar on street. So they didn't have much to work with. They was very poor, definitely. So they came up with an instrument that only need one string. So this is the version this is a concert version for me to share with all of you this day. But way in the past, the instrument was constructed by one big bamboo trunk and the dry board here to amplify the sound. This stick or the whammy bar that allow me to change the pitches of the instrument, still made by the same material, which is the water buffalo horn, and the string is made by the animal gut, but now it's made by the very interesting. It's made by the bicycle brake string, you know. Yes, I know. Like I since moving to America, I was looking for better material to replace the string, but somehow any type of string would not work because the pickup on the instrument. This is an electronic instrument, so if we use the pickup to like guitar pickup, it didn't really work. So I had to come back to the original string, which is, bicycle brake. So we just take the small piece out of it, and then we just make it into string. But it's work, and the instrument also amplified, and then this is the tone speaker. So this we also have this version. After the World War II, after the Japanese left Vietnam, so this is what we got. And this is what we also call program deaf speaker. And you still can find this in Vietnam as almost every single lamp pole in Vietnam. You will see one of this. And when I was there, when I was young, 5:30 in the morning, you will hear like broadcasting on this, and it cut through every space. But for some reason, with the combination of this speaker and the amplifier, like cell-made amplifier that we made in Vietnam, create a great voice for the instrument. It just sounds like the human voice, and I can slide up and down seamlessly.
Let me ask you about the instrument and how it's used in Vietnam. Is it an instrument that is very common in Vietnamese, I want to say, folk music?
Yes, we love this instrument very much. But when it was first invented and appeared, it wasn't allowed to participate, to be one of the instruments for the court music, because court music means for the king and queen, and this instrument is from very low class. But then because it should so much reflect the human voice, especially the ability to reflect our language, because we are a tone language. We have 6 different tones. So this allows us to change the difference, to vibrate on the note. And we have 54 ethnic groups in Vietnam. So we have so many different music genres. And the genres, the differences of the genre depends on the differences of how we vibrate to reflect the dialect of that ethnic group. So this instrument really helped us to do that. So eventually the instrument was accepted into the court music. And because the instrument is so popular and loved by the people, we even have a saying: if you are a woman, you shouldn't listen to the person who plays the instrument, because you will fall in love with that person. And
seduction.
Yeah, because in the past, the women in Vietnam were not allowed to do anything but just stay at home, cook, clean, raise the children, and only men will do the rest of the thing, and even play the instrument, even go to school. So the instrument used to play by all male, not any female. Even my masters, they are all male masters. So to my generation, it's changed. So and then I grown up, and then I saw the beauty of this instrument, and also heard the saying, and my parents told me, and everyone else around me, to tell me that I shouldn't listen to the person who played this instrument. And I said that, well, I love the instrument, so I will learn it to reverse that. So yeah. Yes.
Talk a little bit about the instrument to your left, which is the, I believe, the danchang.
Yes. So I will change this a little bit so we can see a little bit more of the instrument. Yes. So this is a danchang. Originally, it has 16 strings, but the instrument, like I share, I designed this instrument by myself, and it has 22 strings that allow me to play more different kind of music. It's allow me to adapt new technique, and so that I can work with different music genres and do more collaboration. So here's I should give you a little bit of sound of the dancing.
Well, thank you very much. It seems that this instrument is very similar to the Chinese, the guzheng. Is it the
Yes.
same, or is it a slightly different version? Are they cousins?
Yes. So the Vietnamese dancang came from the same family with the Chinese guzheng, the koto from Japan, and kayang from Korea. But just like all of us, we would come from the same family, but when we grown up, we would move to different places, different states, or even different country to study or to be with our loved one. And since we moved to the new area, to new land, new home, we start to adapt to the culture that we are at. So Dan Chang came from the same family like all the sisters and brothers, but when it moved to Vietnam, it started to adapt the Vietnamese culture, and so it speaks Vietnamese language. So yes, it's similar but different.
Let's talk about the May, the commission that you and Vu Nhat Tan wrote for the Apollo Chamber Players. As I understand it, and my Vietnamese is rusty, which is a nice way of saying non-existent, May in Vietnamese means cloud.
So May means a lot to us. When we talk about it, we always feel like it helps us to travel to a new place, to carry our emotion, and we can be free. So May always something that treasure to us. So Vũ Nhật Tân came up with all the structure and the idea at first, and he wanted to write it for Danbo and Apollo. And so we exchanged a lot of ideas, and in May there's a going through the composition, you will actually feel and hear the sound of the rain of life from South Island of Vietnam, and then you go down to the south, and then you even go all the way to north of Vietnam with the ca trù music existing in that, where the Apollo Apollo member actually change to play new technique by tapping to imitate the sound of the Vietnamese trống chầu in the ca trù music, and so that I can improvise and play on that rhythm.
You know, Vanessa, I'll jump in here and say that of all of our commissions, that is one of my favorite sections. I just think it's the coolest thing because you get to improvise and kind of do whatever you want, and we're doing something that we don't usually do. Actually, we've never done is, you know, bang the back of our the body of our instrument. So, you know, the listener or the viewer will see in a few moments when they see the performance, we actually turn our instruments to the back and then we hit them like they're a percussion instrument, and it has a nice groovy kind of jazzy feel to it too. And I think it's just the coolest thing that it's one of the coolest moments that I've, you know, experienced in our commission. So and I'll mention too that, you know, Tan, I think he was also reflecting, and I'm sure this is with you as well, Vanessa, he was kind of reflecting some of his childhood experiences growing up in Vietnam. I think he really wanted that to come through the essence of this particular work too. And it sounds like Vietnamese culture and people are very connected to nature.
So I have to say that one thing I feel fortunate, and so that's because we grow up in the same city, we went to the same school, and pretty much even our parents know each other as well, because you know, the art community is big but small enough so that everyone knows and everyone else. So we have to say that the things happen, but from the difficulties come out something good if we find way to be positive when we look at it. And one way that I can say that after the war, both Thân and I, Thân was born a little bit before the war, the Vietnam War, which is American War for us in Vietnam, we call that, before the American War end. But I was born right after the American War end. So the countries were very poor, which makes us to be were able to stay with very close to the nature, because we didn't have much. So we live with whatever we can find around us, and makes us to see things in a different way and appreciate whatever we have in a very different way.
In terms of the musical score, writing for a string quartet, is that something that you and Tan had done before?
I have to say that happened to Tan much earlier before me, because Tan was trained as a composer. So the system in Vietnam is that we went to the same academy of music, but Tan is in the composition department, and I am in the traditional music performing department. So what I learned is I learned to perform on all the instruments, but not any training on writing music. And Tan was trained in writing music, but nothing on the instruments. So I know. So, and then also it's very interesting because we were trained with more experience of Western music rather than the traditional music. Even me, when I was in the traditional music department, what I learned, the music history, actually I learned about Bach, Mozart, and all of the great composers in the world, but none of that about Vietnamese composer or the masters or the traditional music genre. So in order to have that very important thing that for someone like me, I actually had to find master and study. And so that's why, when back to the question, Tân was trained to write music. So he wrote a number of pieces for quartets and chamber music and symphony, I believe. But I did not do it officially until 2010, when Kronos Quartet asked me to write a 5 minute piece for them. After they listened to the mock-up, Kronos Quartet, all four of them look at me and then ask if I could make it into 30 minutes long.
Wow.
So that's how I start. I really how I start to actually write music, because before that, I still had in my mind as if I was trained as a performer, so I shouldn't write music. It just, I didn't feel right. But thanks to all of people like you and Kronos and a lot more artists give me that encouragement. And so here I am now.
I want to ask members of the of Apollo, what was it like for you to rehearse and to play this piece with the dambao, which I assume you had not played with before? Annabelle.
You assume correctly. Well, it's very interesting, because I was just thinking about what Vanessa was just saying about how Nhat's a contribution to the piece is such a more technical and like also like a abstract kind of music, Western music writing. And then juxtaposed with that came Vanessa with her very, very traditional voice. So I think at first there was kind of like a little fight there, where they had to come in agreement with one another on how to make it work, and how it would work to have the traditional with the very kind of more modern approach to writing music. And it's almost like this jagged edge thing. And then Vanessa came and softened things up, and it's just a beautiful a beautiful composition that has a lot of interesting things happening, and a lot of different moments and a lot of different moods. And so Nhat, I think I also wanted to describe the city, Hanoi, where he grew up in. And so there's a lot of the city noise, and then Vanessa's, the traditional, the nature and the mountains. So that's that just juxtaposition that, yeah, it's interesting.
And Whitney, your part in the score, does it feel like a traditional viola line, or are there differences from your perspective in the way that this is written for your instrument?
I feel like that it's not a traditional viola line. It's pretty much equal with all the other parts. It's not a supporting role. It's not just a rhythmic device or anything like that. So it was unique in that sense, for sure. And there's a really hard viola and cello cadenza that I believe is in the performance. So that was also stretched the technique of the average modern day viola player. We'll put it that way.
Well, Matthew, how was it to you as a cellist suddenly to introduce the sound elements of the dambao? How did you think that fit with your instrument?
Well, I think, that like Vanessa was saying, the dambao is very evocative of the human voice, and particularly of speech. And I think there's a lot of similarities there with the cello. People often say that it's the most similar of the string instruments to the human voice. And yeah, in this extended sort of middle section, where what Whitney was describing, this sort of cadenza for viola and cello, I think that was a little bit like imitative of some of the music that Vanessa had been playing. And, she's such a consummate collaborator, and she has so much experience. It was very natural for her to fall into a groove with us, and for us to all, I think, gel pretty quickly.
So I love that synergy. And then also back to what Annabelle was saying about the sort of the frenetic sounds that Tan wrote, which were evocative of cityscapes, and then the more traditional sounds. And I think that's really like a city as ancient as Hanoi that has a deep history, but is also sort of bumping up against the modern. To feel that juxtaposition of those two things was really effective in the way that this piece came together in the end. One of the formative experiences of my youth was actually living in Vietnam for a year when I was in high school. And I was amazed, and this was in the 90s, so it wasn't that long after the war had ended. And I was amazed at how gracious and kind the people were, especially when they found out that I was American. So there was very little animosity that I felt at that time. And so, yeah, I think that speaks to a potentially very bright future and friendship between our two countries.
Look, thank you all very much for talking about this wonderful piece. May, Cloud, the 14th commission in the 20 by 2020 Apollo commissioning project. Thank you very much to Vanessa Vo for demonstrating the various dans, and also to the members of Apollo. Thank you all very much, and we look forward to now hearing that piece of music.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Good morning from my home studio in Hanoi, Vietnam. I am Vũ Nhật Tân. You can call me Tân, T-A-N. I'm composer and I'm now teaching composition in Vietnam National Academy of Music. I'm very happy that Max Dietrich from Apollo Chamber Player to commission me to write a new piece for Vietnamese instrument đàn bầu. And that is also a very challenge for me. For the first time, I'm writing a new piece for a mix between Vietnamese traditional one-string instrument to perform with a string quartet. It's like we are mixing two different lines together. Thank you very much, Dietrich from Apollo Chamber Player to commission me.
It's the unraveling